Skyrim is one of my favorite video games of all time. The only reason I'm not putting a fancy 10 trillion hours played thingy from Steam up here on the screen right now is because while I was playing most of my Skyrim, I had very unstable internet, so Steam didn't log my playtime. In all of the hours I put in Skyrim, I had previously put in Oblivion, which also is one of my all-time favorite games. So why am I making a video that's titled Skyrim Is Not Fun? Well, because it's not. Skyrim is a fascinating world, packed with interesting things to discover. You have cool side quests every couple meters, and very often things will just happen to you while exploring the game world, where you'll want to find out what's going on. But in order to discover many of these great and fascinating and amazing and interesting things, you would have to do a little something that's called engaging with gameplay. And not only does Skyrim gameplay not hold up to today's gaming standards, it never held up in the first place. Combat in Skyrim is like rollerblading on a glacier while holding a giant vibrating dildo. It's really not so much tactical as it is strategic, where once you are in the fray, the only real tactic that you have is to hit the other guy more than they hit you. You either zoom around the battlefield on the brink of motion sickness, tearing down annoying low-level bandits like they're blades of grass on a Cornwall lawn. And this includes having to take the little nail scissors to find out that last guy that's hiding somewhere. Or you just get one-shotted by some giant Dwemer construct with a big old dong. And this is when you're not getting stuck on some invisible outcropping or slide into a pothole where you can't jump because it's doing the falling animation right now. When you play a mage, you can only survive if your blue bar is reasonably full. If that shit goes down, you either have to sword or die. You can also stock up on massive amounts of mana potions, of course, but that would require you to pick up all of the fucking herbs on the side of the road. And that's a frustrating experience if there ever was one. There's a reason why I prefer stealth builds in Elder Scrolls games. It allows you to have as little gameplay as possible while still opening up to you the vast range of strategic options that the game offers. That is, of course, if you don't get dropped into a room full of enemies, because those boards that run over them and are arranged like a bridge are not supposed to be stepped on after all. Or even better, when the mook that you're trying to kill just sort of teleports out of the way of your carefully placed arrow coming out of the dark. Dark Souls came out not even a year later, and combat there actually feels good. There's a rhythm to it, like it's a dance full of tactical options. You press buttons and your character does things. You have both the time and the need to always be paying attention to the immediate situation around you. In Skyrim, more often than not, the best option you have is to have an epileptic seizure with a steak knife in hand. And when that doesn't work, wait until you have a bigger steak knife. And I say all this, I don't like Dark Souls. It's way too difficult for my personal taste in games, but you know what? Combat there actually feels like something that is to some degree in your control. And that's not to mention Skyrim's confusing ass crafting systems that stay away from quality of life features like there's some rare tropical disease. And the bugs! My god, does this game have bugs! To this day, Skyrim ships with numerous game-breaking bugs, some of which were fixed by modders who were not affiliated with Bethesda and didn't have access to the actual proper modding tools within 24 hours of the game's original 2011 release. And sure, you build a game this huge, I'm willing to cut you some slack when it comes to having a bug or two more than like a very slim and polished title. But as we saw with Witcher 3, it turns out you can actually build a gargantuan open world that is virtually bug-free. And yes, I do realize that Witcher 3 came out years after Skyrim, but it's not like doing your due fucking diligence and properly QA testing your product is some innovative technology developed by NASA so we could bang Triss Merigold without having our genitals burned to a crisp by an accidental burst of fire magic. Speaking of which, that is a fun fucking combat system. Sometimes I turn the game on just to sword dance with some bandits. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but that is forgivable considering that it is actually fun. And in that combat system, you can clearly see the DNA of Batman Arkham Asylum, which came out in 2009, so it's not like Skyrim existed in a completely pre-fun combat world. And I don't mean to compare apples to oranges or anything, but Dragon Age had a really fun combat system, which, by the way, who the fuck came up with the idea of, in Dragon Age Inquisition, just taking the combat system that worked for so many games and making it basically the same, but you have to hold down your mouse button? That made me stop playing Dragon Age Inquisition. But no, with Skyrim, Bethesda just took the Oblivion combat system, gave us the ability to decide what to put in our hands, and then ran with it. Which, you know, that was a good change to make to the combat system, because I was getting pretty tired of borderline breaking my fingers every time I wanted to shoot a fireball on my travels through Cyrodiil. I haven't played Elder Scrolls Online, because I just don't like MMOs, but I do know that the combat system there is quite a bit different from what we have in the single-player Elder Scrolls games. So, you know, Bethesda, who you are obviously watching this video, maybe consider changing up the combat system for the next single-player game also, so that the gameplay isn't just a thing that we have to get through to see all the interesting bits. What's that? You mean Bethesda is just gonna continue blueballing us for a new single-player Elder Scrolls game so people will remain interested in TES Online, which makes them way more money as a live service? Yeah, that sounds about right. Thank you very much for watching this video. Like, comment, subscribe, do all the things. Share this to your relevant communities, but do not spam them. Consider supporting me on Patreon or Subscribestar or buying some of the merchandise, or you can do really all of those things, and also the book that I have written, which is a short story collection. We actually broke like well over 100 copies sold recently, which I had not expected would happen. And I'm talking paperback. And in that spirit, I have ruined Skyrim for you. Now you will not be able to play the game and see how bad the combat system actually is. I do hope you still have fun with the game, because it is good. And I know that there are some mods that overhaul it, but with the whole architecture of how the thing works, you're never gonna be able to really make it feel like Dark Souls. And see you around, cunts.